Nothing says I'm committing a crime more than Donald Trump using a burner phone routed through Egypt and then making sure that his phone call on that burner phone was not recorded in the president's daily itinerary. So therefore, it was an off-book phone call when Donald Trump tried to pressure the Michigan Speaker of the House using his Egyptian burner phone. You're on the New Legal AF YouTube channel. Take a moment to free subscribe, hit the blue button. Early voting has happened, and I'm Michael Popok at the intersection. I never thought I'd have to talk about a burner phone routed through Egypt being used by somebody who claimed to be the president of the United States, but here we are. Okay. Now, I had seen this reference, and we had talked about it on Legal AF a couple of weeks ago, when Jack Smith filed his appendix of about 3,000 pages of supporting evidence, witness statements, testimony against Donald Trump to support his superseding indictment and to prevent it from being dismissed. It got revealed to the public or disclosed to the public a couple of weeks ago, off an order by Judge Chutkan, ultimately an order, a requirement by the United States Supreme Court that Jack Smith back up his superseding indictment. Bring the facts, bring the evidence, do it now. Give us the context. This wasn't Judge Chutkan. This wasn't Joe Biden. This was Chief Justice Roberts and the other MAGA right-wingers of the Supreme Court that set up this procedure. And now we're just living in the world that they set up. And so when we combed through the 3,000 pages, and I did it, we saw originally, we talked about this burner phone being used by Donald Trump, where the Michigan Speaker of the House testified under oath to a grand jury that he was told by an intermediary of Donald Trump to expect a phone call from Donald Trump coming through when he sees on his caller ID, Egypt, spam risk -Egypt. That's President Trump, right? This is right. That's how I know it's you, honey. Whenever I see spam risk Egypt. All right. And we also found out, because there's been public records requests and the Jan 6 committee looked into it, that particular phone call in which Donald Trump tried to pressure the Michigan Speaker of the House in order to conduct some phony hearings, to delay the certification. You know, when Donald Trump was so desperate at the end, where he pushed all of his advisors out of the way because all of his lawyers weren't willing to follow him into the abyss. All of his lawyers that he paid for that worked in the White House counsel's office, like Pat Cipollone and Pat Philbin, and the lawyers for Mike Pence, none of them would do his bidding. The only ones that would follow him over the cliff, like lemmings, was Rudy Giuliani, now twice disbarred and lost everything in his life, including the suit off his back, Sidney Powell at the time, Jenna Ellis, Ken Chesbro, John Eastman. Michael Flynn, I would throw into that category. Steve Bannon, newly released from prison just in time to start a new criminal trial in New York for fleecing his donors in the Build the Wall Foundation. That was the group. So Donald Trump was so frustrated, he started making his own phone calls. Violated rule number 1 of being at the top of a criminal organization. Don't make the actual phone calls yourself. But Donald Trump's like, give me that phone. You can just see him too. You know, big black Sharpie in one hand, the phone in the other, Diet Coke on the table. You know, trying to commandeer the beast, you know, the Secret Service SUV, take him to the Capitol, you know, all that stuff. That's what I'm picturing. And so he picks up the phone, he calls him. But of course, they don't want to make a direct phone call. You know, shouldn't say Donald Trump, the president, shouldn't say POTUS on the phone like the old West Wing first episode. It should say something else like, we're routing the call through Egypt on a burner phone. And the reason this is important to the evidence collection and the evidence in support, as Jack Smith desperately tries to hold on to the superseding indictment so it doesn't go bye-bye, because it's going to get back to the United States Supreme Court. They're going to say, we told you to do an evidence review. Judge Chutkan, what was the evidence review? How did you distinguish between absolute immune, constitutionally protected presidential conduct, this is my Supreme Court voice, and that which falls into the category of prosecutable private conduct, and then the conduct in the middle, which is official conduct of the president on the surface, but there's a rebuttable presumption that can be overcome by the prosecutors. How did you do that? And I want Special Counsel Jack Smith's team to say, well, Let's start with the call on the burner phone that was off book and not recorded by the White House on purpose, where the President of the United States, in who knows what private capacity only, on the burner phone routed through Egypt, called the Speaker of the House of Michigan. A fact that the Speaker of the House of the United States at the time, Kevin McCarthy, before we started the revolving door of MAGA taking out their speakers, he knew about it too. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. As I try to remind people, the appendix is not the trial against Donald Trump. It is only the bare minimum of what Jack Smith believed he needed to put down and file and put into the public domain and provided Donald Trump to keep his superseding indictment to make it bulletproof from being dismissed again by the United States Supreme Court, because that's where we're heading. And so it's not the trial in the box. It's not a concentrated trial, just add water. It's just about this immunity issue. But when I saw the burner phone, I knew where this was going. This is in the how could it possibly be official conduct when he's using a disposable phone routed through Egypt and he's taking it off book so nobody in the White House knows about it, right? Because if you're, I guess the theory is if you're doing something presidential, you're loud and proud about it. Be loud and proud when you're the President of the United States. Give out your daily itinerary. Have your court stenographer or your secretary in the room recording everything. Have your photographer there. But when you're being underhanded, secretive, furtive, surreptitious, use a burner phone. Don't tell anybody about it. Throw people out of the room when you have phone calls. Pick up the phone yourself and make the phone call yourself. And thank God he did. That evidence that got presented to the American people before the election is a treasure trove. I could do an hourly hot take about what I found in there. The legal memos, and that's memos legal, are doing a heavy lift in that sentence, of John Eastman and Ken Chesbro is in there about how they came up with a fake elector scheme. But you could just stop right on the burner phone. Shouldn't the National Security Agency, the NSA, be concerned about the guy who was occupying the Oval Office using a burner phone? Is that a secure line? We just had reporting. I've done it here on Legal AF. Have I mentioned we've got a new YouTube channel? Hit the free subscribe button, early vote now. We just had a story, 3 stories, about hacking. Iran hacked the Trump campaign and maybe Kamala Harris's campaign to embarrass Donald Trump. The Chinese hacked through Verizon Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's phone and whatever else is on there. And I'm sure that's not good for those people or for national security. Putin hacked Elon Musk and has him basically reading off the talking points of the Kremlin. And now we've got Donald Trump using a burner phone. Oh, I'm sure nothing could go wrong with that. I love that piece of evidence. I'm sure it will come up during oral argument eventually before the United States Supreme Court when they got to deal with this issue. I could just see, they'll be sitting there. I've visited the Supreme Court. I've heard oral argument there. If you haven't done it, I recommend to everybody who's a believer and a lover of democracy, go to Washington. Go visit our core governing documents, right? This is our social contract. Go look at the Constitution behind the glass. Go look at the Bill of Rights. Go look at the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Take a tour of the United States Supreme Court. Go see those hallowed halls and go look at the giant statue of John Marshall, who basically created the modern United States Supreme Court in 1807. And when you go into this room, by the way, which has only been there for like 60 years, I was like, that just got built in the last 60 years? Okay. So when you go there, you could just hear the arguments. They're sitting there, the red crushed velvet and the wood walnut paneling. And it's not that big of a room, by the way. I mean, the gallery's big, but the actual dais that they're on is not that big. And you're there, and I've argued before appellate courts, just not this one, with a lectern, and you got your thing. I could just see at one point, the prosecutor team, the appellate lawyers for the prosecution going, we'd like to now turn to how should we put this? The Egyptian burner phone being used by the then president of the United States, and the fact that particular phone call was not listed on the daily agenda. We urge the court to find that was a private event, not meant to be official conduct, and is prosecutable as a crime. I want to go. We'll follow it here on Legal AF and the Midas Touch Network, but I love to be in the room for that particular thing. Burner phones. I just did another hot take that you can't burn down democracy no matter how hard you try and how many incendiary devices you toss into a ballot box, a ballot collection box, trying to literally burn votes. You can't do it. Our democracy is too strong. We're not going to allow anybody to put a gun to democracy's head. Or we're not going to allow a guy get to anywhere near the White House who used to use a burner phone in order to try to cling to power and stop the peaceful transition. And we know what to do. Our voice is heard every 4 years. It's coming up. It'll be here in less than a week. It's hard to believe. Thank you for being here with us. We're building this channel in the shadow of the election so that it's durable and it's sustainable after the election on the other side. I want to see you on the other side. Take a moment, free subscribe, boom, boom, hit that subscribe button. Bring some other people do the same thing. Until my next hot take at the intersection of law and politics, I am Michael Popok, and I am at the intersection. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.